I read news every day. News that's informative, but rarely encouraging. The InterMountain Christian newspaper aims to change that. They present the news you need to know, from what's going on in your community to your world, with encouraging words, motivation, and the resources you need to make positive changes in your life. What is your local government doing that you need to know about? What's happening in your community you need to be a part of? Whether it's a story from your neighborhood, a national story, or an encouraging word, you'll find biblical issues of everyday life in the InterMountain Christian newspaper. InterMountain Christian News is produced and supported by the work and donations of individuals and churches. You'll find it at churches, Christian bookstores, by subscription, and online at IMCNH09242016. To find out more about supporting this local resource, go online at IMCNH09242016 or call InterMountain Christian News in Boise, Idaho at 208-703-8688. The InterMountain Christian News, a voice sharing the truth on matters dear to people's hearts.
Are you tired of the secular news? Do you want a Christian view of politics? Do you want to know what is going on in your Christian community? Your wait is over. Welcome to the InterMountain Christian News Hour. Here is your host, Dr. Anthony Harper.
I'm Dr. Anthony Harper here with the InterMountain Christian News Hour, making a difference because we are a voice of truth. And Chris Adamo joins me from Wyoming with a Rhino Tracker. Thanks for joining me again, Chris.
Well, as always, Dr. Anthony, it's good to talk to you.
It's been a little while since I've been able to talk with you, Chris. A lot has transpired since we last talked. For people who want to check out your website, your website address again is?
It's www.rhinotracker, with no H, R-I-N-O, tracker.us. And we devote the site to rooting out liberals and Republicans who claim to be conservative, but who ultimately prove that they're not. That they're liberal. They're part of the D.C. establishment. They're part of the same leftist globalist crowd that's been totally undermining us. And sadly, there's a lot of them. So we've got our plate really full, trying to go after as many of them as possible.
Well, with this election coming up, November 8th is the voting date, Tuesday, and a lot of the established Republicans haven't been very comfortable with Donald Trump, have they?
Well, and you're absolutely right. Now, there's something I want to clarify there, and it's not being said nearly enough, but it needs to be thoroughly understood. That what we actually have in the Republican Party right now is a three-way split. We have the Trump supporters who've kind of gone rogue in their own direction. Then we have the opponents of Trump, and people treat that as one group. It's actually two groups. You have the really staunch biblical, constitutional, call them Ted Cruz conservatives that really are hesitant to support somebody with as dubious of a background as Donald Trump and as frankly double-minded as he's been in the past about supporting liberal and conservative causes. But you also have, and this is probably the main thing that I hope is recognized during this campaign season, you also have the rhinos, the so-called GOP establishment. These are the D.C. insiders that have claimed to be conservative over the years, but we listen to these people, in recent weeks as they really vehemently, really stridently attack Trump in every way, shape, or form. And the thing to be aware of with these people is they never, ever went after Obama or Pelosi or Harry Reid or Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton with the same fervor that they go after Trump. These people are not anti-Trump because they're afraid he's a threat to the Constitution. These people are anti-Trump because they're afraid he's a threat to their business as usual back inside D.C.
I'm Dr. Anthony Harper here with the InterMountain Christian News Hour, wanting to share the gospel message with you. It is clear that you hear the message and respond as soon as possible. In John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in him would not perish, but have everlasting life." Please humble yourself today and admit your sins and ask Jesus to forgive you of your sins and be your Savior today before it's too late. If you died today without Jesus, you would be lost forever in hell, which does exist, contrary to what you've heard from Oprah Winfrey and so many others. Please respond today. To learn more about having a relationship with Jesus, you can check out our website, imcnews.org, and at the top left of our website, you'll see a Who is Jesus banner ad, so you can click on that for more information. Also, you can call 24/7, this toll-free number, 1-888-NEED-HIM. And there's also a website, www.needhim.org. Once again, that 24/7 telephone number, toll-free, 1-888-NEED-HIM.
Are you tired of the secular news? Do you want a Christian view of politics? Do you want to know what is going on in your Christian community? Your wait is over. Welcome to the InterMountain Christian News Hour. Here is your host, Dr. Anthony Harper.
So we've got a lot going on. A first presidential debate coming up on Monday, and recently, just on Friday, Senator Cruz is now encouraging people to vote for Trump as a way to defeat Hillary.
Right, and excuse me, I have to say on behalf of Ted Cruz that I am convinced now. I'm not going to say that he's been perfect or that any candidate running for any office throughout American history has been perfect. And we know that the only perfect is when Jesus returns. And none of these people obviously qualify. But Cruz has been, as much as I would say is humanly possible, Cruz has been sincere and steadfast and consistent in standing by what he believes in. When he went up against the rhinos and the liberal Democrats in the Senate, pushing for that government shutdown, he did so. That was back in 2013, I believe. He did so fighting what he knew would be a very unpopular battle against all the big-moneyed interest in D.C. And, of course, the rhinos and the Democrats all ganged up to finally overturn his effort, and they've been castigating him ever since as the personification of evil for doing that. Cruz stayed on message. He stayed on message throughout the campaign. He did his level best not to engage in a catfight with Donald Trump until finally at some point Trump had just really pushed things so far that Cruz finally felt compelled to fight back. When he was at the convention, as you mentioned a minute ago, he did not do the endorsement that everybody demanded he should do. And I think I can confidently speak on his behalf. His purpose in not doing that was that after the things that he and Trump had said about each other, he knew that, he knew that to then come out and pretend all of that had not happened would have been totally phony, would have been totally perfunctory, and would have been absolutely lacking in any credibility. So what he said instead to people is vote your conscience. Now, that is a worthwhile message for any good conservative to share with America, is vote your conscience. Because if you're a good conservative and you see the possibility of, just for one example, Donald Trump advocating Supreme Court justices in the mold of Antonin Scalia, and without a doubt Hillary Clinton is going to try to appoint a bunch of Ruth Bader Ginsburgs, then vote your conscience could easily mean and should easily mean to support the Scalia types over the Ruth Bader Ginsburg types. Unfortunately, the egos at play there at the convention, including Rhino Representative Peter King of New York, who hates Cruz, they took it as an opportunity to say that Cruz was trying to split the party and he was not upholding his pledge to support the nominee and everything. And of course, we remember what a huge brouhaha that turned into. But in the last few days, Cruz felt it was right to come out and say that the choice is between the Trump agenda or the Hillary agenda. We have our problems with the Trump agenda, but we know with absolute certainty that the leftist, globalist, pro-Islamist, anti-Christian, anti-America Hillary agenda is national suicide. And so Cruz came out and essentially said that. On that basis, he's saying, and I'm paraphrasing just a bit here, he's not saying Trump is the great savior of America, but he's saying Hillary is the death of America, so vote against her.
Right, and we've got, for Hillary supporters, the younger ones may not be that pleased in her in voting for a third-party candidate. I'm wondering about how many people disillusioned with Hillary would vote for their third-party candidate and how that would affect this election.
Well, I'll tell you something. There was a message that Rush Limbaugh used to say, and I love Rush to death, but he got this one absolutely wrong back in the 1990s when Ross Perot was running against Bill Clinton and George Bush. And Rush said that the third-party candidate will take votes away from the incumbent. Well, in 1992, the incumbent was George Bush, and yes, sure enough, Perot took votes away from Bush, and Clinton won. In 1996, Bill Clinton was the incumbent, and Perot took votes away from Bob Dole, who was a challenger. And the thing that Rush got wrong there was the fact that the third-party candidate does not take votes automatically away from the incumbent, but he takes votes away from the candidate that stands for the least. And in the case of 1992, it was George W. Bush. And in 1996, it was George H.W. Bush. In 1996, it was Bob Dole. Both cases, you had a rhino Republican, a so-called moderate, a fence-sitter, who was trying to broaden the base by standing for as little as possible, and you had them running against Bill Clinton, who, whatever else you want to say about Bill Clinton, total moral reprobate, total leftist and everything, but he's a well-defined candidate. You know what he stands for. And that being the case, the third party is not going to siphon votes off of that so much as siphon votes off the other one whose their image is a lot fuzzier. Now this year, you have Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton is, she'll come out and talking about jobs for America and trying to sound like this great pro-American and everything, and yet everything else she stands for is leftist. It's big government, bureaucracy, it's a collectivism, it's multiculturalism, it's everything that a true conservative would stand against. So she's delivering this really mixed message, which is ultimately leftist if you read between the lines. But the point is, publicly, she's not coming out and saying, I'm a great leftist, vote for me. And so your third-party candidates, they're not going to encroach so much on Trump because what, in the eyes of the average citizen, Trump stands for is, I'll quote this, make America great again. And the base that's attached to him on that level is not going to be shaken from that because of Gary Johnson's libertarian utopia or Jill, whatever her name is, with her Green Party. And yet Hillary, who's tried to be, she's pro-military and she's pro this and she's pro that, when actually Hillary is a leftist, this ambiguous, namby-pamby attempt to not project herself as who she is, she appears very weak. She appears very, very indecisive. And against that, a third-party candidate looks comparatively more attractive. So these third-party candidates are actually seriously detracting from Hillary's electoral strength.
And what strong points do you see in Trump?
The strong point I see in Trump, the number one strong point is that his name is not Hillary Clinton. To be totally honest with you, I do have major reservations about Trump. There's times in which he says the right thing, and you look at it and say, if he really means that, it'll be good. If he really intends to secure the border, it'll be good for America. If he really intends to get foreign criminals out of this country, it'll be good for America. If he really intends to rein in the budget, it'll be good for America. If he really intends to appoint justices like Antonin Scalia to the Supreme Court, it'll make America great again. But the problem there is, on each of those, the key word is if. And some days he sounds really, what would you want to say, ideologically driven, really intellectually motivated towards that. Other days he sounds like he's been told by James Dobson or somebody what he needs to say, and he's saying it the best he can, but his heart really isn't in it.
Well, I think about Dr. Dobson. At least Trump has more godly advisors than Hillary does.
Absolutely, and again, you look at that, and that's a good sign. That's a positive sign that he's surrounding himself with these people. What you don't know is how, is he going to tell them you're fired right after he gets elected? And again, we don't have somebody in there who's as ideologically defined and consistently ideologically driven as let's say, Ted Cruz. But when you compare Trump to the rest of the electoral field back running during the primaries, with the exception of Cruz, he was frankly much more consistent in a pro-America message than people like Rubio, who get out there and talk about, when they're talking in English, they talk about securing the border, and when they're talking in Spanish to a Spanish-speaking audience, they talk about amnesty. And so in comparison to things like that, or John Kasich, who was ushered into the Congress as a movement conservative and has lost every bit of that ever since then, against such people, Trump was head and shoulders above them. We can hope and we need to pray that this experience that he's gone through during the election season has been also, among other things, for him, a learning experience, where if he really does want to make America great again, that he will come to the recognition that the only actual way to do that can be found, for example, in 2 Chronicles 7:14, for America to turn back to God. And he has said things in recent days very much to that effect. And so, again, we hope he means that.
Well, I was at the Values Voter Summit, and his message was very clear. He's improving much better. I believe that he's following the advice of Dr. Dobson and some other Christian leaders, and we'll see a lot in this first debate. He's going to have to be, he's going to be very clear and focus on the issues. If he goes too hard on Hillary as far as makes any derogatory comments about her personally, that may bite him in the you know what.
Well, I will tell you this, considering all the events of the last couple of weeks with Hillary, and I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm absolutely convinced that this pneumonia business is absolute nonsense. That was like the third or fourth excuse they came up with for why Hillary is doing so poorly and, collapsing and confused at times and very bizarre behavior that looks like some sort of dementia. And I don't say that mockingly. I say that very seriously. I'm convinced that pneumonia has nothing to do with it. That was just the only excuse that they came up with that seems to stick at this point. I think that is probably going to be, I'm actually predicting at this point, that will be the primary takeaway from the debate is how, does she even behave coherently? Because the leftist, the Democrat Party, the Hillary Clinton campaign, and also the leftist media have done their utmost to try and make her health a non-issue, to the point of, trying to use their Alinsky tactics to call it sexist, to talk about her health and to try and stifle any real consideration of that. But we all saw the videos of her on 9/11, and we all have seen the pattern over the months and years of really strange things happening, some sort of degenerative condition that she's going through that isn't getting better. And I think that's going to be the real focus on during the debate. It's not going to be, I believe you're absolutely right, it's not going to be a matter of Trump getting out there and verbally body slamming her, which, believe it or not, the Democrats will try and make him do, because that way they can revert to their typical, sexism and picking on the girl and all this other stuff that have nothing to do with being a fit or an unfit leader for the free world. But that's how they invariably pigeonhole debates and issues into an area where they believe they can dominate.
So this is a very tense moment here, and looking forward to see how this will turn out. This movie called Hillary's America was very revealing about the Democratic Party, and very scary to think about what they've stood for so long. And hopefully more people will watch that. I don't know if you've had a chance to see Hillary's America, but it's coming out on DVD in October. So,
which is perfectly good timing for it. I want to give you just one little example of something we've seen in the last 8 years, and this is so comparatively minor in relation to the other abominations that have been inflicted on America by the Obama regime. But the fact that this is minor, and the fact that it is simultaneously such an abhorrent thing, that lets us know just how widespread this attack on America has been from this administration. The purpose of NASA during the 50s and 60s was to win the Cold War, or to do its part in winning the Cold War by advancing America technologically against the Soviet Union. And we did that when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon in July of 1969. We had an administration there that was America's technology leader in space travel, which was pretty much technology across the board. And they maintained that position in many ways from the 60s through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. And under Obama, you might remember that the NASA administrator, who was just another leftist toady of Obama's, he made a declaration that the purpose of NASA was Muslim outreach. Now, how do we go from the International Space Station, the space shuttle, landing a man on the moon, seeking, to explore the universe, to boldly go where no man has ever gone before? How do we go from that to Muslim outreach for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration? And the point is that it was just Obama's effort at subverting and undermining every prominent and profound aspect of a great America. And that being the case, again, that was just NASA. You look at that same mindset across the board in education, in energy development, in the Department of Defense, and we're in a very, very precarious place as a nation right now.
We are. Very troubling time. I think about the makeup of the Supreme Court, and if we get more people like you mentioned, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and maybe even a transgender judge to the Supreme Court, or a Muslim to the Supreme Court, I think America is going to be sunk.
Well, consider the fact that our Republican Party, and this goes back to my primary clarion call to the nation, that we've got to defeat liberalism within the GOP before we can ever attempt to take on the Democrats. That if Obama was, for example, to nominate a Muslim appointee Supreme Court, that the effort, the leftist effort, would be to focus not on how can this person possibly uphold the Constitution when it's totally contrary to Islam, and they're going to serve one of two masters, we know that, but their focus would be on credentials. What law school did this person go to? And, things of this nature. How many papers have they written? Can they answer our questions in the Senate? And there's only one question that should ever be asked, not necessarily of a Supreme Court justice, but about a Supreme Court justice or about a nominee, and that is, will this person have will this person make any effort to uphold the Constitution, and do they have a track record to prove it? Either way. During the Clinton era and the Obama era, you've had these people they've got great so-called credentials. They know how to answer the questions in the Senate. They can play legal racquetball with the senators, many of whom are lawyers, and so everybody goes away patting each other on the back, thinking that they're a great elitist club, and yet the Constitution is not even a consideration. And it should not only be the primary consideration of the Supreme Court justice; it should be the ultimate, only consideration as a defining issue of any subject that's brought before the court.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be, I think, learned, Chris, from the recent Values Voters Summit with a lot of great speakers. There's videos of all the presenters. Of course, Donald Trump was one of them, along with Governor Mike Pence of Indiana. that website for those that would like to see those video presentations. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North was there, a couple of generals and some colonels, and John Voight, the actor, was the one who introduced Donald Trump there that I met. And the website is valuesvotersummit.org. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Values Voter Summit before, Chris.
No, I actually haven't. I haven't been to much of any of that kind of stuff since the 90s when I was involved with the Christian Coalition. Okay. I will tell you this. You get a gathering like that, and everybody sounds really good because they know who their audience is. And just for example, at the Christian Coalition meeting back in Washington shortly after Newt Gingrich became Speaker, we had a room. We had every prominent congressman come into the room, and they all sounded like they were with us 100%. And I can tell you that a good number of them in both parties, when the rubber meets the road, are not. We found ourselves regularly betrayed by such people, even though they knew the right answers. So when at the Values Voter Summit, you heard good things. It's proof right there that they know what the country needs. And now what we need to do is ensure that those who actually uphold those things, even in the face of a huge backlash and huge opposition from the left, those that uphold those things are the people we should rally around. Those that don't are not merely inept or misled. They are betraying us. And those people we need to systematically broom from the ranks of any kind of leadership.
Now, what you mentioned before, there is no perfect candidate here. Kern was there at the Values Voter Summit, said very proudly that only Jesus is the perfect leader here. And I would rather have him here. Can't wait for that time. But there has never been a perfect presidential candidate. And Franklin Graham made it very clear, that all that Hillary Clinton stands for are religious freedoms being removed. I think about the Second Amendment too, Chris, about the right to bear arms and her threat to that freedom as well. Whereas Trump,
just imagine if her Supreme Court justice comes out and declares the Second Amendment, as liberals have tried to make the case over the years, that it only applies to official state militias like the National Guard, which is absolute absurdity. Imagine throughout history, every country that's ever been established as a nation has had a right to arm its military. And all of a sudden we think we need a Second Amendment to tell us we can do that, otherwise we can't. It was obviously not that. It was the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And we could have, a couple more Ruth Bader Ginsburgs in the Supreme Court, and we could wake up one day and find that the Second Amendment has essentially been declared null and void for the average citizen. And don't think they wouldn't try a thing like that. They've used arguments and I can't name the exact justices that did this, but in some of these major cultural cases where they struck down cultural precepts of our Judeo-Christian country, they did so on the basis that Europe doesn't do it that way anymore. And any judge that said that proved themselves to be unfit for office, but they're still there.
We got a serious problem here, and I want to encourage people to be responsible and get out and vote. Chris, hopefully this year we will have the largest Christian voter turnout ever in U.S. history. I do believe that Christians can make a difference. We know that in recent presidential elections they stayed home, but if they're out in major force this time, a way to, I think, easily defeat Hillary.
There's enough Christians to do it. I will say one thing different this election versus the last two elections in particular is that there is more of a feeling, and good or bad, maybe some of it's misguided, but there is more of a feeling in this election that we have something to vote for than the last two elections, because we all knew that Mitt Romney and John McCain would be disasters as Republican presidents, but the thought was they probably wouldn't be as much of a disaster as Barack Obama. And that's the reason that the vote was not nearly as enthusiastic for them as it could have been. there is that same concern on different levels with Donald Trump, but there's also something you couldn't do in the last two elections is you couldn't ask the average Republican voter, what is John McCain going to do that you're going to be excited about? What is Mitt Romney going to do that you're excited about? Because they had no answer. The only thing they said is, I want to get rid of Obama. There's a lot of that in this election. I want to get rid of Hillary. I don't want to have any more of this leftist insurgency destroying my country. But if you ask them if Donald Trump is talking about doing things they're excited about, yes, he is. He's talking about rebuilding the military. He's talking about building the wall and ending this invasion of foreigners who are not amenable to the American way. He's talking about reestablishing the integrity of the government and getting rid of the lawbreakers in government and getting rid of all the crony capitalism whereby government funds are used to pay favored interests like Solyndra, and the list goes on. And so there are things that he can build on that he's talking about doing that people are excited about.
Yes, it is definitely different here, and I want to encourage people to, like I said, get out and vote. November 8th is the vote coming up, and thank you for joining me again, Chris, today, and may you have a blessed time there in Wyoming.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to talking some more whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chris. Bye now.
I'm Dr. Anthony Harper here with the InterMountain Christian News Hour, an outreach of the InterMountain Christian newspaper making a difference, and we need your support of good news. Check out our website at IMCNH09242016, where you can download our newspaper and make your tax-deductible donation to support our voice, our Christian concerns at the White House and in Israel and other places. Do go online to make your donation and to support this important news ministry, the only evangelical Christian newspaper of its kind, a grassroots newspaper in our Intermountain regions, spanning from Colorado over to Reno, Nevada. And we currently have needs to cover our travel expenses for White House and Israel trips. And also, we need a donated minivan, a vehicle, a good condition, low mileage, air conditioning, and automatic transmission for delivery of our newspapers and other news events that we go to cover, representing Christian concerns. So please make your donation tax deductible online at imcnews.org just by clicking on the donate banner ad that you see there. Thank you for your support of our good newspaper and for your prayers, most importantly, that we can continue to be a voice of truth for Christians in our Intermountain region, for the glory of God.
Wow.